She doesn't love you. Not really. She loves the idea of you. A version of you that never truly existed, except in her mind. She loved what you represented, not who you are. Before you ever spoke a word, she had already written your character, already imagined the way you'd touch her, save her, fix her, become the missing piece in a story she's been telling herself since girlhood. And when you showed up, she cast you into that role without asking, not out of malice, but out of unconscious need. That need to complete an internal fantasy, to fulfill a story written by wounds she hasn't yet faced. Carl Jung warned us about this. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what happens. You meet her, it feels electric, fated, cosmic, but it's not. It's projection. You're not her soulmate. You're her mirror, her emotional stage, her puppet. And she's not seeing you. She's seeing the man she wants you to be, the man she needs you to be, to avoid facing the broken, unfinished parts of herself. And the darkest part? She doesn't know she's doing it. She will call it love. She will swear it's destiny. She will look you in the eyes with fire and devotion. But it's not you she's burning for. It's the illusion. And the moment you deviate from that illusion, the moment you act like a real man instead of her dream, she won't adjust the dream. She'll replace the man. Carl Jung didn't study behavior. He studied the soul, the shadows behind the smile, the unseen forces that shape how we love, how we choose, how we suffer. And what he uncovered about women wasn't sweet. It wasn't romantic. It was disturbing. He discovered that many women aren't looking for a man. They're looking for a mirror, a projection screen, a clean, obedient surface to reflect the image of the ideal man they've built in their unconscious. Not a partner, a placeholder, a mask to wear, a role to play, a man-shaped silhouette to pour their unmet desires into. And here's the trap. If you match her fantasy, if you say the right things, behave the right way, mirror the image she's rehearsed since childhood, she'll love you hard. She'll swear you're the one. She'll call it alignment, fate, divine timing. But it's not divine. It's delusion. Because the moment your real self shows up, the moment your truth breaks script, she won't adapt. She won't pause. She won't grieve. She'll recast. Cold, swift, without remorse, because the show must go on. And if you can't play the role, she'll find another man who will. Jung gave it a name, the Animus, the silent inner man that lives inside every woman's psyche. Not a fantasy, a force, a collection of beliefs, images, wounds, and ideals she's absorbed over a lifetime. From her father's silence, her first heartbreak, the novels she read, the lies culture told her about what a real man is supposed to be. And if that animus is immature, inflated, or unconscious, it doesn't stay hidden. It starts to leak into her desires, into her standards, into every interaction she has with men. She's no longer relating to the man in front of her. She's relating to the masculine myth inside her mind. And you become a stand-in, a projection, an emotional avatar, not a person, but a symbol, a character on a stage you never agreed to step on, a script you never got to read, a role you were assigned the moment she said hello. And here's the danger. She's not aware it's happening. She believes she loves you. She feels like she's connected to you. But it's not you. It's the inner man, the one Jung warned about, the one who speaks through her without her realizing she's possessed. At first, it feels like magic. She listens intently. She laughs at everything. She tells you you're different, that you're not like the others. And for a moment, you believe her, because no one has ever looked at you like that before. Like you're the hero, the key, the final chapter of her unfinished story. But look closer. That gaze isn't affection. It's projection. It's not intimacy. It's infatuation with potential. She's not loving you. She's loving the man she hopes you'll become, the man who never makes mistakes, the man who knows what she's feeling before she speaks, the man who fills every emotional gap left behind by her past. And the moment you fall short, the moment you act human instead of mythical, that gaze changes, it cools, it narrows, it turns into subtle disappointment, then quiet withdrawal. You think she's pulling away because you did something wrong. But the truth? You just stop being the fantasy. And no fantasy forgives the man who ruins the illusion. Because when you live inside a woman's dream, you don't get to be real. You only get to be useful. And the worst part? You feel it. Somewhere deep in your gut. You know she's not really seeing you, but you ignore it. Because being admired feels better than being alone. Because playing the part feels safer than risking rejection. So you lean in. You become what she wants. You adjust, you adapt, you shrink, you perform. You wear the mask, hoping that one day she'll love the man beneath it. But she never will, because she never met him. She only met the silhouette. And once that silhouette starts showing cracks, once your real thoughts, needs, or flaws rise to the surface, she'll panic, not outwardly, not always with words, but emotionally she'll withdraw. Her tone will shift, her eyes will dull, her patience will vanish, and you'll blame yourself. You'll think, maybe I said too much. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I changed. But here's the truth. You didn't change. You simply stopped pretending. You slipped out of the role, and in her mind, that's betrayal. Not because you lied, but because you stopped playing the man her unconscious needed. And when that happens, she won't argue. She won't fight. She'll just move on. Quietly, coldly, as if none of it ever mattered. Because to her, Animus, it didn't. The real you never mattered. Only the performance did. Most men don't see it. They think they've been chosen. They think they've finally earned the kind of love songs are written about. They mistake intensity for intimacy, projection for passion, and worship for worth. But it's not love, it's theater. And you're not the leading man. You're just a prop, a well-timed appearance in a script she's been perfecting since childhood. A character drawn from romance novels, father wounds, and fairy tales that never told her what a real man actually is. And the tragedy? You think you're unique. You think you're the one. But you're not being loved. You're being used. Not for your body, but for what your presence symbolizes to her unconscious. You're not her future. You're her emotional scaffolding. Temporary, replaceable, held in place only as long as the illusion remains intact. Because once you stop supporting the story, once the reality of who you are starts bleeding through, the curtain drops, and so does her affection. And here's where it breaks. Not with a bang, but with a slow, silent erosion. You start to breathe, to speak, to show the cracks you've been hiding under your smile. You stop performing. You start existing. And that's when everything shifts. The warmth in her voice cools. The admiration in her eyes dims. The affection becomes mechanical, distant, rehearsed. She doesn't explode. She retreats, quietly, systematically, as if some invisible string between you has snapped, and neither of you can find the knot. You'll feel it before you understand it, and when you finally ask what changed, she'll say, I don't know. It's just different now. But you do know. You stopped being the illusion. You stopped echoing her fantasy. You stopped being her creation and started being yourself. And she didn't betray you. She couldn't, because she never truly knew you. She betrayed the dream she painted on your skin, the character she cast you to play. And when the scene ended, so did her connection, not with the man in front of her, but with the myth inside her mind. Carl Jung didn't whisper about this. He warned us. With the seriousness of a man who had seen too many souls lost to illusion. He said when a woman is possessed by her animus, that inner, unconscious, masculine force, she begins to speak with certainty, but without truth. She becomes morally convinced, but spiritually blind. She argues with the force of a prophet, but lacks the humility of one. Her emotions become weapons, her logic becomes circular, and her righteousness becomes untouchable. She doesn't relate, she dominates. And the terrifying part? She thinks she's right, because the Animus doesn't whisper. It declares, it preaches, it convinces her that she's seeing clearly, even as she projects shadows onto every man she meets. And you, if you haven't done the work, if you're not rooted in your own masculine truth, you will mistake that intensity for connection. You'll confuse her emotional heat for depth. You'll believe you're being pulled into love, when really you're being dragged into possession, because that's what it is. Not partnership, not romance, possession. And unless you see it, you will surrender to it and lose yourself in the fire she thinks is holy. She never truly saw you. She saw a story, a script, a pre-written narrative etched into her psyche long before you ever arrived. You were the actor, the placeholder, the emotional prop cast to fill a role she didn't even realize she was directing. And you played it well. For a while, you delivered the lines, hit your marks, held the fantasy together like it was sacred. But the moment you slipped out of character, the moment your truth clashed with her dream, you became expendable. No fight, no explanation, just a quiet edit. She cuts you from the scene like a bad take, snips you out of the frame like a director removing a shot that no longer serves the mood. And it stings. God, it stings. But don't take it personal, because it wasn't personal. It was projection. It was performance. You were never the man she loved. You were the symbol she used to fight a battle she didn't even know she was waging. You weren't a partner. You were a vessel for her hopes, her wounds, her inner war. And when the war shifted, you became collateral damage. So what now? What do you do when the mask falls off? When the illusion dies and the silence grows heavy? Jung didn't leave you helpless. He handed you a path, not paved in comfort, not dressed in romance, but carved in fire. He called it individuation, the ruthless, lifelong journey of becoming whole, without applause, without permission, without being picked. It's not a trend. It won't get you likes. You won't find it in dating hacks or podcast sound bites, because it's not sexy. It's not easy. It's sacred. And here's the brutal truth most men never face. As long as you wait to be chosen, you are a slave to her projections, to your own emptiness, to the cycle of seeking validation in someone else's eyes, until you choose yourself, fully, fiercely. Finally, you will keep chasing ghosts, different faces, same pattern. You'll swear it's love, but it's not. It's addiction to being wanted, to being useful, to being seen, even if it's not really you being seen. And every time the fantasy crumbles, you'll call it heartbreak. But what's really breaking is the illusion you built to avoid facing yourself. And then you wake up, not all at once, but slowly, painfully, like stepping out of a trance. You stop performing, you stop chasing, you stop waiting for someone to choose you like a trophy on a shelf. And in that stillness, you see it, the game, the patterns, the illusions that used to pull your strings like a puppet. And now, you don't dance, you stand, still, grounded, unmoved. And that stillness, that silence, it terrifies them. Because the women who once adored your compliance, who praised your sweetness, your softness, your availability, now feel uneasy in your presence. They can't place it. They'll say you've changed, that you've become distant, too logical, too cold. But the truth? You're not cold. You're clear. And clarity in a man is rare, dangerously rare, because a man who's faced his own shadow, who has burned the mask and survived the fire, isn't charming anymore. He's unshakable. He's not here to be liked. He's not here to perform. He's not here to be molded into another woman's unfinished dream. He's here to live. And that, more than anything, frightens those still trapped in illusion. Because you can't seduce a man who doesn't need your approval. You can't manipulate a man who has nothing to prove. You can't control a man who has met himself and refused to flinch. You've been told they want honesty, openness, vulnerability, that if you just share more, feel more, express more, you'll be loved more. So you soften, you give, you become available, predictable, safe, and then she pulls away. Why? Because deep down, many women don't crave safety. They crave stimulation, tension, polarity, mystery, not because they're broken, not because they're cruel, but because the unconscious mind, hers and yours, isn't wired for peace. It's wired for drama, for a story, a pursuit, a storm to chase. So when you offer calm waters, when you give your whole soul on a silver platter, when you make yourself fully readable, accessible, controllable, you stop being a man, you start being furniture, comfortable, useful, and utterly forgettable. Because a man who is always there, who always says yes, who shows up without mystery or edge, doesn't feel like love. He feels like background noise. And she may not know why, but she'll start looking for something to disrupt the silence you so carefully built. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And he was right, painfully right. Most women don't face it. They spiritualize their chaos, wrap their wounds in astrology, intuition, and self-love, but never look inward long enough to bleed truth. Most men, we numb it with hustle, with pornography, with approval, with distraction. We bury the silence under dopamine and call it drive. And then we meet each other, two strangers, both running from their own reflections, and we call it love. But it's not love. It's avoidance, a pact to pretend, to hold hands and look away together. That's why it collapses. Not because of cheating, not because of betrayal, but because the entire foundation was built on fantasy, on performance, on projection, on the desperate hope that the other person would do the inner work we refuse to do ourselves. So when the masks start to slip, the whole house comes down. Not because someone changed, but because no one was real to begin with. So here it is, your fork in the road, your moment of reckoning. You can blame her. Point fingers. Call her manipulative. Say she lied. Join the bitter chorus of broken men who never looked in the mirror. Or you can confront the man inside. You can burn the costume. Let the mask melt off your skin. Step off the stage you never agreed to be on. And finally write your own damn script. Because the man who stops chasing fantasy stops being a slave to it. And when he does, he doesn't become cold. He becomes clear, not reactive, not desperate, not performative. Clear. And clarity? That's what makes you untouchable. You no longer seek to be seen because you've already seen yourself. You don't need to be chosen because you've already chosen who you are. And from that place, that still rooted, uncompromising place, you stop attracting fantasy. You start attracting truth. If this cracks something open in you, don't just scroll like nothing happened. Sit with it, feel it, and then pass it on. Send it to the brother still wearing the mask, to the friend stuck playing a role just to be loved, to the man who's mistaking performance for purpose. This message won't go viral. It's not entertainment. It's not trendy. It's truth. And truth doesn't beg for applause. It demands courage. So if this spoke to your soul, don't keep it to yourself, because somewhere out there, there's a man on the edge of losing himself. And this might be the mirror he's been dying to find.